All right, on this episode of Make Work Not Suck, we are talking why living or not living core values determine whether work sucks, especially when chaos hits. Daniel, what does that mean?
Ooh. All right. I would say that when stuff hits the fan at work, people do not rise to the level of their aspirations. They fall to their level of their core values. And if those values are fake or fuzzy, or if they just plain forget, that's when work starts to suck.
All right, my name is Ryan Hodges. This is my co-host, Daniel Steer. And in this episode, we're going to look at three key things. When things get messy, core values become the difference between the collective resilience or the collective meltdown of an organization, and how misaligned values quietly erode trust, performance, and culture long before anybody realizes the damage. And finally, your real culture isn't what's written on the wall. It's what your team defaults to under pressure. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. So let's dig in.
Welcome to the Make Work Not Suck podcast.
Ryan, how many organizations have you worked with where the values that are written on the wall and how the team operates actually have something to do with each other?
I'm going to go $1, Bob.
$1, Bob.
Everything above it, right?
Yeah.
Almost every single one of them. There has been very few, maybe only one out of hundreds that have ever had it right.
I can think of one client that was close, but they had 9 core values, which I think was part of the problem. They had a problem in the other direction. They were well aligned to who they were, but I don't think they'd done enough work to really tighten it down. 9 is too many. But I would agree with you. Overwhelmingly, there's a massive disconnect in most organizations between what's written on the wall or, what's written in the, VTO, the annual report, wherever they put their core values, their mouse pad, and how the organization actually operates. Why is that gap so big?
Okay, so I think here's the big one, right? And I know we've talked about this on many episodes. Core values are a belief of the behaviors we believe we want to have. The reality is we don't often connect the dots to the social emotional reality of how the company is actually behaving. And so that's where the disconnect comes in, is the core values written on the wall is just a belief. It's a pipe dream because
it's aspirational. It's who we want to be, but it's not who we are.
But when you actually go into an organization and look at the actual behavior of people and how people respond, it's often not even close to alignment to what's written on the wall.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, using the simplify method, just having the vision of the values is not enough. You have to have a journey to instill the values. You have to have a culture that wants to embrace those values to produce the results that the values are trying to drive.
Okay. I think you just lost some people. So say that one again. The vision of the values, the journey of the values, the value of the values, and the results of the values.
Yes.
Unpack that again, because you just went through the wheel. I saw what you did, but you did it all within values. So help me understand that.
All right. So there's the vision of the values, right? What we believe, what we want to achieve, the vision. When we think vision, that's always the future we're aspiring to achieve. Same thing with core values. When we're coming up with our core values, we all sit in a room and go, what is the thing we don't want to tolerate? And, who do we want to be? And we write all this stuff down, right?
Right. Like integrity and teamwork and all that good stuff.
and we can talk later about how you should set better values than the ideas of teamwork is a core value.
Okay.
But then there's the journey of distilling the values and printing them on a piece of paper and saying these are our values are not the path forward. That's a step in the journey. But to actually get people on board for the company to live those values, it takes an intentional journey of distilling those values into the organization, rechecking, holding people accountable, holding yourself accountable, rechecking the pulse. I mean, it's like drawing, the boundaries on a football field. You got to know where inbounds is and out of bounds is. If there's no markings on the field or no markings on a basketball court, how does anybody know when they're in and out of bounds?
Yeah. And the ref can't do anything because he doesn't know when to call you in or out. So there's no accountability. And
then so that's journey. And then the second one or the third one there is the culture aspect of it, right? Like we have to hire and fire to these values. If we have people that don't believe in them, because not that they're bad people, but it's not their MO, then you're never going to have a succinct team. You got to hire people that are in line with those values, that believe in those values, that live those values, outside of the company. Because if the values are well written and they're well grounded, then people are going to know I want to do that or I don't want to do that. And then the results just take care of themselves.
Yeah, they usually do. If you get the vision, journey, culture sides lined up, results tend to fall in place.
Well, and what's the famous, was it Peter Drucker? What's the famous quote?
Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Right. But too often, how many times do we have the belief of culture as opposed to an actual culture of success?
The reality of culture. Yeah. And I would imagine that those results especially show up or don't show up when the pressure's on, right? When things get crazy, when you lose a big client, when the market shifts, when, a major supplier screws up and you're left holding the bag. I think that's the moment where the results of your values either show up or they disappear.
Right.
But you've got to do the work before the storm comes to be ready for that moment when something bad happens, when chaos hits.
Oh, I agree. So let's do this. I think we got some stats here because I'm interested. I'm anxious to get to the spicy take segment.
All right.
And so let's go by the numbers. What's some of our stats we got here with the positive and negative sides of culture?
I see 76% of employees say their organization's stated values are not consistently lived by leadership. I'm kind of surprised by 76. I would say, in my experience, it's usually higher than that, that are not living out the values.
I like this one. And so I am anxious to get to the next segment because I'm ready to argue this one. But I wholeheartedly believe 76% of their organization, the leadership does not live the values. And so that's a problem we've got to address. Here's one on the positive side, right? Companies that have high culture alignment, that actually have, a team that lives the core values, 4x revenue growth. So
I believe
if you're working in a company that's been flat year over year,
there's a values problem there.
You've got a values problem. And it probably lies with the first bullet of leadership not living the core
not
values.
Consistently. Yep. Here's one. 54% of employees who leave voluntarily cite broken trust or values misalignment as the primary reason. That's crazy. More than half of the people who choose to leave say part of the reason why they are leaving is because the values don't match reality. Wow, that stings.
Again, I'm not
shocked, but it stings to see the numbers.
Yep.
During crisis, another stat, teams with strong shared values see up to a 40% faster recovery in productivity and decision making. I'm really curious how the engineer in me wants to measure that, but it feels true to me.
I can tell you I've experienced not only 40%, but I mean 60, 70, 80% faster recovery. I've seen companies take months to quarters to recover from bad decisions, whereas I've seen teams literally recover from bad decisions in days and weeks. And the difference is the core value alignment.
All right, last one. Organizations that embed values into their daily operations report 32% higher engagement and 35% lower burnout. That sounds like that's the journey culture, right? It's how the culture is woven into the processes, which I think a lot of people, I know I struggle with seeing that and what that means, but if you do it, I totally believe you'd have better engagement and less burnout.
There's something, and I'm so anxious to get to the next segment. I think I do agree with the 30% or 32% higher engagement and 35% lower burnout when the values are weighted and there's balance to the core values. Where I have seen teams that have high rates of engagement, but there's a high rate of burnout, but because the overall culture of the people is strong, but the burnout is high as well, but they don't leave. They're burned out, but they don't leave because they're so engaged with the culture. But it's more of like there's a friendly culture or everybody's good people, But what I've noticed in those companies, the core values will often weigh, quick results. So, what we call red line, green line.
Right.
They incentivize red lines, but because they're all on the same page with their redlining, it's almost like the lemmings running off the cliff that don't realize they're running off the cliff. And so where I would say organizations that embed those in their daily operations that have the 32% higher engagement and 35% less burnout, they have equal weighted core values that both drive, the right amount of speed, but the right amount of diligence.
That idea of weighting your values, that's interesting. Because I worked with with an organization once several years ago, and it was just a very high D organization. Like everybody in that organization was hard charging, not especially relational, very task oriented, extroverted. I mean, they ran hard, and they chewed people up and spit them out. Like if you weren't wired like that, you didn't last. So it was a strong culture, but it was unbalanced. And over time, I think they all burnt each other out because they just kept pushing each other to go faster, 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 faster. And they would eat their young. And, it was really hard for them to grow because the culture was so strong, but it wasn't a healthy culture. Yeah. Is that what you mean by balanced?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And we can get in more into it in the next segment, but and I think we've got this in a couple of other episodes where it's having a vision value, a journey value, a culture value, a results value, and a purpose value. So equally weighting them in the balance of behavior, not just having 4 results values and 1 vision value or,
right.
And that's, we can go off on that one.
It's common to have all results values and then wondering why you can't keep any journey and culture people hired.
Yep. Well, and I want to throw this out there real quick because the stats we're referencing, I mean, these are not, just generic stats. I mean, these are coming from Deloitte, PwC, Gallup, MIT, and a few others. So, I mean, these are some very notable resources that are calculating these stats. So this is not just, some small group of companies. This is a real problem.
Oh, yeah. All right. So give me some spicy takes.
Okay.
What are some bold, uncomfortable truths that we need to be talking about?
All right. The fighting stage. I like the fighting segment of our episodes. All right. So here's the first one that's up. If your values only matter when things are calm, they aren't values, they're marketing.
Oh, damn. That stings.
So do you agree or disagree?
I totally agree. I mean, I think that under stress, under pressure, you can't, the masks come off, right? You can't pretend very well under stress, right? And so we can pretend, like for me, I can pretend to be friendly, but under stress, I get very task oriented. And in that moment, you've got to ask yourself, what do you really believe? Like, how important are these things to you? And if they're truly important, you will hold on to them even in stressful times. But if they're not that important, you will drop them like a bad habit.
Exactly. When the going gets tough, what do? Get rid of
the values. Get going.
The values fall by the wayside unless we're unified to it. You're going to default to your MO that you have been, you yourself have been programmed to, and you as a collective culture, right?
Right.
Your company culture is your tribe, and what you've allowed or not allowed is what's going to stick.
Yeah. I mean, I see this all the time in like results oriented companies where, we say we value people, but then it looks like we're going to miss earnings this quarter. And sure enough, we start firing people.
Or we double down like, we gotta hit the numbers. So,
right.
It's people over profit. And then we're not going to hit our earnings. Mm-hmm. And so what do? We squeeze the people and have them work late and
right. Or there's a big deal and there's a process we're supposed to follow, but hey man, we got to get this deal over the finish line. Screw the process. Just get it done.
Yep.
And it's like, that's shows what's really important to you. It's you care about results. You don't care about journey.
Well, and what I gotta say, when things are calm, if your values only matter when things are calm, that basically means you've just written fluffy words on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
You've written something that makes you feel good about your values. And I'm anxious to get to the next bullet because this is going to prove my point. If they're just things written on the wall and they fall apart anytime the going's getting tough, they aren't real values. We've said that. But the real question is what is the leader doing? Because I will extend this a little further. And if you've written them to make you feel good and you're promoting them, but you are yourself as a leader are not living them, then it is just marketing. It's sham marketing.
Yeah, they're theatrical values, not real values.
Theatrical values. Okay.
Number 2, most leaders don't actually want core values because core values force accountability that they are not ready for.
Bingo. Why does 76% of employees say their organization's values are not consistently lived by their leadership team? Because the leaders don't want to be held accountable. The funny thing is most leaders believe in accountability and they think everybody should be held accountable, but they're the worst at either holding accountable or being held accountable. And I think this is even more so when you get like in the EOS world, the visionary, right?
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many visionaries I've had to literally like peg into a corner to get them to admit to agree or drop or do because they're so afraid of the what if. Well, what if we tell this series of customers no? We could be helping them. And it's like, you can't serve everybody. You can't be everything to everybody. You can't help every customer. You can't have every feature. And I think that's kind of the thing is these core values that are just marketing on the wall is really what the owner, founder, visionary wants. But they're often, those are the things they aspire to have, but they are the worst at actually following.
Right.
And I think there's 2 things that you can do here. Is 1, you need to admit to yourself what the real core values are. Or 2, you need to build a company in a way and get yourself out of the way. Be more of a chairman. You can still be the CEO and owner of the company, but be the chairman of the board, not the day-to-day operator of the company. You will be excluded from your company culture, but the culture itself will thrive. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to make a company that's going to serve a market and generate profits, and you're the culture problem, it's not going to get past $3 to $5 million if you're the culture problem.
Right. All right. So I got one for you. If you're the leader of the organization, CEO, founder, president, whatever your title is, and your people have never called you out for not following the core values, you don't have real values.
Ooh, that is true. Well, and then I think the other part of it is you don't have real values if the people are too afraid to call you out, because that means you don't live by the values you set anyway.
Right.
Radical candor or true authenticity. And then the staff is afraid to call you out because you basically can't take the radical candor.
Sure. Or you're a tyrant and everyone's scared of you. And so no one will tell you the truth. I'm sure that whatever's written on the wall of that organization isn't that.
Look, this goes back. I know this is gonna be a little bit of a rant, but like back in the lack of technology, and you go back to like the 40s and 50s where people just showed up to work, and they just listened to their boss, and we just did as we were told, and we read the newspaper, and we were just like, that's why they call it the silent generation, right? They just did what they were told. That behavior is still believed to be there, that we can just fake it. And of course, there was a lot of, pre-technology, a lot of people could go, especially in a larger organization, they could go to one office and, they might screw something up or say something bad, but they can go to the next office and hold them accountable. And they weren't talking to each other. Versus now with email and Teams and Slack and Facebook, the boss screws up, it's all over the place. Like, stop pretending you can fool human beings. Like your facade is totally see-through.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Everybody knows.
Like, if you're going to be a tyrant, just make your core values state this is a dictator organization. It's my way or the highway. And you know what? There probably are people that say, you know what? I just want to show up to work. I want someone to tell me what to do. I want to collect my paycheck and I want to go home.
There are people like that.
There are. And that's okay.
They don't tend to work for winning organizations, but there are people out there that just, want to stay in their lane.
But
all right, last one.
Go ahead.
Chaos does not create culture problems. It simply exposes the culture problems that leadership tried to ignore.
1,000%. And I think the thing is most leaders, especially small business leaders, are redliners, right? They make they make a decision that has a perceived high value and a low actual value. The difference is in the time. When they make the decision, it looks like it's this grandiose decision, but then shit rolls downhill and the operations team is spending 3-6 months cleaning up the mess. And then they're wondering, well, why can't anybody get anything done? Because they are the manure spreader of the bull in China shop. I think the thing is those moments are exactly that. It's what exposes the values leadership's ignoring. When you got a core value of do the right thing, and in your mind, rushing to close that deal or leaving out all the details or just getting the signature, did you really do the right thing? Or did you just rush to a result because you wanted to high five and get a commission, but oh, by the way, in 3 months, you're getting it clawed back because you didn't actually do the right thing. Or if you're the leader if you're the owner leader in this situation, your profits are going to suffer, or you're probably going to have to fire people. And then you're probably turbulent, like, well, I need to fire some people, but if I fire some people, everybody's going to get scared. And what do I do?
Yeah. Or give discounts to a pissed client because you didn't take care of them the way you promised you would.
I've got a positive example of this one. There's a group I'm working with. We've got a difficult doctor, a brilliant doctor, great doctor. He's just one of those, he's just difficult to work with. And that's because he's got high expectations, high standards. And I would say there's a level of everything outside of patient care is red line, but patient care is definitely green line. So strength, weakness, right? So we've got this major system integration going on, and man, he's redlining all the stuff with this system integration because he doesn't understand it. It's in his, it's in his way, et cetera, et cetera. But the operations team at corporate, just like doubling down because this doctor is creating the chaos. And instead of just everybody, well, he's the problem or I can't work with it. All right, we've got to figure out why he's upset. We've got to take this work on. We got to figure out how, because at the end of the day, if this system migration does not go smooth, not only is it going to, this doctor going to go, I told you so, or piss him off. We're making work suck for all the people at the practice. And this is multiple practices.
Right.
So in the moment of chaos, which was self-created by a doctor, but I wouldn't justify, but I could say there's some good concern there. The team doubled down on the core values.
Wow.
And here we go. I don't know. I'll tell you how it goes next week because I'm getting on a plane in a couple of days to make this all happen.
Okay.
But this week, the operations team coming out of our L10s, our project L10 and our operations L10, we're giving high marks because we've come together to solve problems. We didn't back away. And what has made that happen is the leadership team of the organization has instilled those values. They live those values. They're open and transparent. They call themselves out on the values. And anytime something hits the fan, what do? We pull up the core values and go, okay, how can we live these values?
Nice.
Newsflash, we set them using the simplify method, so they're well balanced.
Good.
Shocker.
Yep.
It can be done. It is real.
Yeah, absolutely can be. All right. Monday morning fix. If you're in an organization that is out of sync with itself, right? What you say your values are and how the organization really operates has nothing to do with each other. What would you recommend to that organization, to anybody in that organization to do on Monday morning?
So I want to give you two perspectives.
Okay.
Positivity is infectious. People love
Yes.
positivity, and when they see winning, they want to be a part of it. Now, when the winning is, gossip and negative and stuff like that, you'll attract some but detract the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, positivity is infectious. Winning is infectious. When people want to see that, you can drive change within your organization if you're at the bottom or middle, or you're upper leadership, but you're not the owner founder.
Mm-hmm.
So one, this shouldn't be, well, I need him to change or her to change at the top before I can do anything. Bullshit. You can make work not suck for you and your team and actually drive positivity in the organization. And just even a little bit improvement can make, it's the pinprick, right? You just need to start the ripple effect will take care of itself. So if you are in the middle of an organization, and this advice goes whether you're at the top or wherever you're at, run a chaos audit. Quick, simple, easy. All you got to do is ask your team one simple question. What did we do last week that violated our values? Map out the cracks that show up and talk about how you can address it and prevent it and fix it. And then hold yourself to it. And just do that once a week and watch the change. And you'll see the dynamic change in your team. And then you'll see that where it'll start spreading to other teams. And if you're at the top of the organization, ask it with your leadership team, or better yet, go to someone. Now, don't do in-runs. Don't go down to the bottom level employee or someone lower in the organization and go, well, you need to do this. Just simply ask them, where did we not live our values as a company last week? Nope. No penalty. You can't get mad. You can't be aggressive. You got to listen. You got to seek to understand. Don't try, well, that was because no, don't do that.
Right. And in most organizations, I think the leader's going to have to go first. Like the leader's going to have to say, here's where I didn't live up to my expectations of myself, my values, and how I want to behave. I want
to clarify, because a manager is still a leader. So when I'm talking, if you have direct reports, you should do this. So
yes.
Not just leader as in the top person in the organization. If you have direct reports, you should do this.
But you probably need to give an example of yourself, not following it first, right? Because if you come in and start pointing fingers at everybody else, it's going to get real awkward and defensive. You've got to go first by, kind of leading with that vulnerability and be like, hey, I screwed up and I did not live the values the way I want to, and don't need to make excuses, but I want you guys to know that this is what I did, and this is what I want to do next time.
Well, and keep in mind, here's the exercise. Is the question is, what did we do last week that violated our values, right? What we're looking for is how the cracks showed up under stress. What was the stressor, and how did the value not get created? I'll give you a perfect example. My tech team that works directly for me in that scenario I just gave, I pulled them in, and there was a series of mistakes, and I pulled up the core values and I said, here is one, and my rule is you can't 5 core values, you got to live all 5. You can't pick and choose. You pick and choose, you're doing it wrong. You got to live all 5. And so I picked up a few instances and I said, please tell me how we went through all 4 core values, or all 5 core values in this instance. And I know this sounds a little challenging, but it's like, if you can show me how you exerted all 5 core values, then I will back down. It's a mistake. Mistakes happen. But 9 times out of 10, someone goes down through and they go, oh, yeah, I didn't do that one. Okay. So how can we improve that next time? Well, I'll keep it top of mind. I'll make sure I go through these next time. It's not a gotcha. It's not incriminating. It's not this, that, and the other. It's just, and there have been times where I've found mistakes and someone has gone through, oh, I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this. And I did, like, I can't fault you. You did it all. You thought, actually, your logic is sound. It didn't work out. It happens. 2 out of 10 times it's like that. 8 out of 10 times it's, oh, I missed that one. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
There's the crack.
Yep.
And it's a pretty easy fix. So this next one, I'm going to throw this one for you. And I actually really like this one. This one is, how can somebody do this? define what its hard version of each value. How can somebody go, how can you help someone define the hard version of each of their core values?
So I think the hard version would be, what does this look like under stress? And I think for most of us, we would need to maybe break that into two pieces of, for me, given my role, how I'm wired, my natural tendencies, what do I want to do? Like, what's my natural inclination, right? Under stress, I'm not going to be as sensitive, thoughtful as I should be, right? I'm going to run over people because that's what I do under stress, right? So recognizing that about myself and being honest about that with my team so that they can call me out and be like, hey, you're being an ass. Stop it. I would want to then maybe have like a personalized version of, okay, so under stress, here's what I want to do that might not feel natural, but this is how I'm going to live that value out, even when everything in me wants to run in the opposite direction. So it's maybe a personalized application of, here's how I'm going to live that out when I know I'm not going to want to.
Yeah, curious. I would actually cautious against going personal, because then I think you start making your own definitions and I think you start making your own version of the core values, and then you start bending the meaning, and then that actually creates a problem.
So is this more of a group definition of here's how we operate when things get hard?
I think so, because if each person does their own definition, I think everybody can add input to it for sure.
Sure.
But I think if everybody changes the definition of what it looks like when it gets hard, then you end up with you create more chaos, because you created a bunch of silos as opposed to, a unified value. Now everybody should put their 2 cents in, but I think you need a unified definition of what does this look like when it gets hard.
Okay, but it shouldn't change, right? Because we said if your core values change when it gets hard, they're not real. So then what is the version of when things get tough? What does this core value look like?
I think it's defining it. I think when you look at most core values, what's written on the wall is like teamwork. And it's like, we value working as one united team.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it's intending, or what we're trying to say here is, we work on a united team. What does this look like when it gets hard? When we're tired and we're frustrated with each other, we have to remember the mission and work together and do the hard things and talk to each other and work through our frustration in order to be one team in a chaotic situation. I made that apply. But
sure.
I think you have to, like, what does this look like when things are going? Because it's easy to say, unite as one team, we celebrate wins.
Right.
That's easy.
Yeah, everybody does that. That's not hard.
Right. Versus defining the behavior in a negative situation. I like what it says here. What does this look like when things get ugly?
Yeah.
When
we're tired.
Value when things are ugly.
When we're tired, we take the time to resolve our conflicts. We don't just sweep them under the rug.
Yeah. If you think about it this way, when you think about it in that negative, because at the end of the day, we talked about when core values are good, when things are good, times are good and everything's just flowing, then they're basically marketing.
Right. Values
are when you have to make tough decisions, when you have to make decisions, period, whether it's slightly tough or really tough. I mean, all decisions have to be, made. There's always a pro and a con and a cause and effect. But I think what it does by defining when things get ugly, it instinctively makes the value usable instead of inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage everybody to figure out what it looks like when things are ugly, even if it's just yourself and you share it amongst your coworkers or your manager and you take it with your team. I guarantee you, and I have seen this before, you can be a company of 10,000 people, take this piece of advice and watch how fast it goes up the chain and starts becoming the de facto norm.
Yep.
Positivity is infectious. People love to be connected to purpose and know where the boundaries are and how to do the right thing and et cetera. I mean, at the end of the day, what do we want to do? We want to show up. We want to do a meaningful job. We want to utilize our skills. We want to improve our skills and know that we're doing something, decent with our time every day. We want to get a paycheck for it. And then we want to go enjoy our families and hobbies and whatnot. And we don't get to enjoy our hobbies and whatnot when the work side sucks.
Right.
Plain and simple.
So there you go. That's how not having real values when the chaos hits can make work suck.
Make work not suck. Our podcast that talks about exactly that. Our process, vision, journey, culture, and results. We present real-world business solutions that make the difference. Our goal is to make work not suck. Hosted by Ryan Hodges, co-host Daniel Steer. Join us each episode and make work not suck.